The May 26, 2026 Forest Grove School District Board of Directors meeting is called to order at 5:30 p.m. We'll start with a roll call of board members present. Risa Franco. Yes. Kate Grandusky. Here. Pete Truax.
Yo.
Maya Andrade. Yes. Christy Kotke is here and Alma Lozano is absent at the moment. I'll look for approval of tonight's agenda.
So moved. Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And we are going to start tonight with the student representative report from Maya. This is going to be Maya's last official board meeting. The board will see her at the spotlight event at the high school in a couple days, and we will be saying a few words there and celebrating her contributions to the board. I'm going to pause just a minute. I'm going to welcome Alma Lozano to the dais at 5:31 p.m. for the record. Welcome, Alma. And we'll start with Maya's report, and then I'm going to have the board talk a little bit about her impact. Bye, Maya.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for having me again for the last time this year. I'll jump straight into the report. I have some additional comments, but I do want to make sure I say everything I needed to say. The Forest Grove High School is prepping, kind of wrapping up the school year. We'll be in their final week next week, we're wrapping up finals of processing their classes as well. The underclassmates have also started to prepare for the end of the year by finalizing class dates and building their schedules for next year. A lot of them have reported being pretty happy with the choices they were given and some new additional classes that they've heard about, thanks to our other classmates who help kind of spread those around the schools. Across ASB, we started our final project as a whole class. Next year, we hope every class will have a representative responsible for helping organize their events, training the school's culture, and supporting academic outreach as well. And we're currently wrapping the elections for those representatives, while also transitioning leadership to our new ASB president. Speaking of leadership, Claudia Ramos was supposed to be here, but I think she kind of got lost, so we'll see when she comes in. So I won't be able to introduce her right now, but I'm sure when she gets here, I'll make sure she says hi. She's an incredible student, super sweet, and deeply passionate about kind of opportunities for herself, but also for everybody else. And so I asked the board and obviously the members of the public kind of welcome and support her as she steps into this role next year. Super nervous, so I'm kind of excited for her, but I know she's feels a lot of pressure. Moving on, our leadership group Latinos in Action recently held their senior night on Thursday, where students showcased their tremendous work, dedication, and volunteer hours that they contribute throughout the year. And they also wanted me to thank Arturo for coming to our Noche Familiar and giving a speech. It was really warm, and a lot of the parents also really appreciated having someone from the district talking to them. Talking about Latinos in Action, that's kind of the group I wanted to highlight today with our club. Shout out, I kind of forgot to send photos again, sorry, Bethany. But Latinos in Action is basically really fitting for me because they're the people who got me this position. I don't think I would have ever stepped into any type of leadership role if it wasn't for LIA. It's a program dedicated to empowering Latino students, and they mentor younger students to represent culture within the school and advocate for the Latino community beyond school walls. Again, this program was kind of the first time I felt truly seen, and realized that leadership did include people like me, my color, and kind of with my thoughts and my opinions. And I've learned so much and have gotten so many opportunities. So to anybody who's listening, I recommend Latinos in Action. Super fun class. And I want to say thank you to my advisor, Velasco, for always supporting me and guiding me and everybody else. The class is also currently seeking support and funding for their next year's annual Dia de los Niños event, which is a free carnival-themed celebration for the community that creates a safe and welcoming space for children to play, learn about opportunities, and connect with resources. While the other older LA students also have the opportunity to give back to the community. They're kind of in a zone where they have enough money to fund it, but not enough money to keep it going. And it's something that we never do to gain profit. So they're kind of looking for funding just to have that extra cash to be able to give back properly and not, cheap out on gifts, cheap out on experiences and stuff like that. And then as I wrap up my report, I just want to take a moment to thank you all, all these wonderful people up here on the board. I'm really, really grateful. I don't want to get too sad because we're going to start crying and I get really ugly crying, so let's not do that. But I've learned so much from each and every one of you guys. I've served a lot, and I think that each and every one of you has taught me a really important lesson. I'm going to miss this so much, and I want to say thank you all for welcoming me and having a lot of patience with me and my stuttering and my nervousness and Sometimes I blank out in the middle of meetings. And for making me feel super included and showing me that younger generations do have a place in leadership and in policy work. I appreciate you guys. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Maya. Well, Pete's are you? We're all going to take just a couple minutes here and talk about the impact that you've had, which I'm imagining that your FGSD president has entered. If you want to introduce a little bit and also say a word about your mom who's here with us tonight.
Yes, so my FGSD president hasn't entered, those are my friends. I'm saying for the board of friends. My mom's in the audience today. My mom has kind of always pushed me to do the best and kind of ask about opportunities and never settle for less than I know I can. So she's super cool. She's here watching me today. First time, super excited for her to go through this 2 hour long meeting with me. But yeah, that's my mom. And then like awesome friends that are always here to support me.
Thank you for coming. And I think for me, what I have talked about before with Maya is the value that you've added to the board. Every ASB president that works with us brings something different, but in some way they bring something similar, which is a strong advocacy and an ability to really communicate for the community, the experience you're having, the needs that students have and that they want, and even the dreams and things you aspire to. So I don't ever pick up that you're nervous or the things you spoke about. In fact, I think sometimes you have been, you've been an example for me of how to speak your voice and to be able to speak your truth and represent. And you can tell your pride in Forest Grove High School and the way you've showcased the different clubs, all of those things that might, Claudia.
Yeah, it is.
It is. Trying to get here.
Yes, I've lost myself.
It is a hard place to find if you've never been here before. So I am really appreciative of your willingness to serve. And also, could you take just a minute and talk about what the future looks like for the board? We'll be seeing you again at the Spotlight Awards, but would you take just a minute and talk about what's in your future for you?
Yeah, so I won the Ford scholarship, and so I'm getting invited to Lewis and Floyd. So I'm staying at home in Oregon, but that's okay. I'm majoring in psychology and international affairs, and then joining their free ball track. And yeah, we'll see how that goes. Yeah.
All right, the Ford Scholarship is quite an achievement, and so congratulations on that. And I'm going to let the other boards speak to the impact they've seen from you as well.
Well, I've been on the board since 2011, and it's been such a gift to have a student representative on the board. And each one gets better and better and better and better. I mean, it's just the leadership from the high school and your community of the high school and your advocacy has been just really wonderful, and pushing back sometimes, not agreeing with the board, but I think that perspective is so healthy and feeling confident, which you always feel confident. And I don't ever see the nerves, but I really, really appreciate your contribution on the board, and I wish you much happiness and expect to see great things from you in the future.
Yeah.
I have been so grateful for you being on the board. I have loved our conversations on the board and off the board, kind of, I don't know, kind of our shared experience with students. I think you've done an amazing job just advocating and advocating, and kind of saying what's on your mind, which I really appreciated. It's a perspective, which I love. As you move forward and support, we'll be there at the same time. So, if you ever need anything, I'll be there. And then I'm very excited for what you'll do in the
I think the growth that I have seen in you since I came on the board has been magnificent. We haven't agreed all the time. You've said some things that I sort of rattle around in my skull for a bit before they finally made sense to me, and maybe that's more me than you. The other thing that maybe I ought to turn this on. The other thing is the maturity. Studies have indicated that the single biggest fear of Americans is speaking in front of a large group of people. we will run into burning buildings before we will voluntarily get up and talk to a group this size and large. You handle that well. We all deserve to speak in front of the student. And you handle it as well as anybody I've known. So I think that's also part of the maturation. I do have an issue with going to a college whose nickname is River Otters. That bothers me. a great deal. I'll get over it. River Otters.
Well, Maya, we are very fortunate to have had you, this year that I've been on the board. I enjoy your voice, your perspective, your leadership. It's just brought an incredible amount of value, and I hope you understand that. It's just been great, not only here at the board, but it's whole community. You know, hearing your name from students and stuff like that, the impact that you might not think you have, but your name is out there. And it's really good positive stuff. So thank you for representing the student body. You're an inspiring woman, so it's a great stuff.
And Dr. West?
Couple of comments. First of all, I want to point out for the record to Maya's mother that Maya did call you super cool. So make note of that. You might need that someday. Maya, I just want to thank you for the calm you have brought to forward, the representation of students. And I want to draw special attention to something that I think is a gift of yours. You have, over the course of this past year, spoken some really difficult truths to me and to people on the board. And you've done so respectfully, and you've done so in a way that people can hear. And not everyone can do that. That's a very special talent that you have. So I hope you continue to nurture that and culture that. And I cannot wait to see what you're going to do.
All right, thank you, everybody. I do believe there is yes, we want to send you off to your university experience prepared. So we have some gifts for you here. That should set you up well on your first day at university. We wish you the best. And again, thank you for everything.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. With that, we're going to continue with direct reports. Mine tonight is fairly brief. I did just want to highlight that the Forest Grove Garden Walk itinerary was just posted, and the Tuolumne Plains, St. Bernard and the Tuolumne Plains High School entered their community garden into the garden walk. So they are assigned on Sunday, the 14th. So I would encourage anyone in the community and on the board to stop by. For people who haven't participated in that garden walk before, it is free. And it's just a bunch of different gardens around the city. But thank you to Stephen. I saw his application in there just for highlighting that work that they've been doing and helping our community have access to that. So that's coming up. And that's all for my report tonight. I'm going to pass it down to reset anything. Okay, all of anything.
I think I shared it with you, Christy, but I went over to the Hispanic Metro Chamber, and one of our students got actually recognized down in Portland and got a scholarship. So that was really awesome to see that our small little district was out there being represented.
Awesome, wonderful. Director Truax.
Yeah, I attended the Memorial Day celebration at Forest View Cemetery next to Tom McCall. And the Neil Armstrong Middle School Choir sang the anthem. America's Beautiful, God Bless America. A number of other songs were directed very ably by Anna Elliott. And thank you to Assistant Superintendent Longley for helping me out in my senior moment. She not only spoke, not only directed, but she was one of the speakers and spoke of a relative who served in the military during Desert Storm and Desert Shield and all of those myriad of difficulties we suffered in the nineties. And that gentleman was, as Anna was telling us, was hit with PTSD. And as a result, was declared 100% disabled and was mustered out of the military. Worked for a while with the Veterans Administration here in Washington County, with other veterans of like disabilities, and moved on. Unfortunately, he died about a year ago. She misses him a great deal, but to her, it was an indication of those who we honor on that Memorial Day. I might also mention, and that former police chief Henry Ryman also spoke at that service, at that celebration. And it was also very positive towards his military service and the people that he met while in the military. My own comment on that was that we not only should remember those veterans who served and who lost their lives in defense of the United States, but also remember those, and I'm going to get a little teary here, because when I was in Vietnam, my wife was here alone. She was teaching alone. She was going home to her apartment alone. She was learning to change the oil on the car alone. She was doing all those things. Forgive me. That we all do without a second thought, but she did them alone. She and people like her who stayed behind are also heroes and also needed to be remembered on Memorial Day. And Mr. Thaler, the commandant of the Forest Grove chapter of the American Legion, remembered those people who were relatives of those who did serve. And I'm grateful to him for that. I'll shut up. I've said too much already.
Thank you, Pete. I'm actually going to turn it to Kate.
I'd just like to say that the Gales Creek Community Club, this year, for the very first time on Thursday, we're going to give a $1,000 scholarship to, his name is Owen, and I've had a lot of fun talking to him, and I think his last name is Gross, but I'm not sure now, can't remember, I should have written it down. We had 2 applicants and really neat students, so he will come on Thursday at 6:30. We'll have a little gathering in the school library for him and his parents, and this is the beginning of a scholarship that the community wants to give specifically for someone from the Gales Creek area. That was what that's happening. The second thing is that I am going to resign from the school board and beginning June 10th. And I want to just briefly say that I have a lot more to say at the next meeting. I didn't read rid of me yet, but it has been an honor to work with many dedicated staff members, teachers, and students over the years, and it's been a privilege and an opportunity. I was hoping to stay until next year, but my son is in Australia, my grandchildren are in Australia, my daughter and her family are in New Zealand, and we are in the process of immigrating to New Zealand. So we will leave in November for 3 months to 6 months, and usually, I don't think people want old people like me moving to another country, but there's a couple visas, immigration opportunities, and the first one was parent booster, and we decided that that didn't fit the way we wanted it to fit, so we're gonna apply for another one. So I regret leaving, but I felt this was the best time to resign. The board in July will have a what do you call it? This retreat. Yeah, a retreat. And I just thought having a new person on at that time, but it's not so busy. I didn't want to wait until November when things get busier. And it gives a person an opportunity to be with the board for a year and the board to work with that person. And I know there's a lot of really talented and really wonderful people out there that can offer something different. And I think it's very, and I want to really say that this has been a fabulous board. This board has been absolutely wonderful. We've worked well together. We've shared perspective. For me, that has been really important is having Alma and Teresa and our student rep representing our community, because 60% of our students are Hispanic, and we need to hear that voice, and it's been really heard well on this board, and I really appreciate that. And Dr. West, from the day I read your resume, and I was in New Zealand when we were interviewing, you're a gem, and thank you so much for picking us for script. So thank you. And I have flowers for you, but there's peonies behind, and I made a little bouquet on the board. I'm sorry I didn't have time for your business. Maybe I can go back into the field and fix them.
I'm hoping those strawberries.
Oh, yeah. So, I know, Kate, especially in your Gale Street community, but people who know you in the Forest Grove community knew that this process has been happening for quite a while with the application and the potential of moving. I also know that this decision was yours and yours alone to make, and the timing, and I appreciate all of the time and thought you put into making that decision. I think we do have a process in place, as most boards do, for what an appointment would look like. I think we may have time start that discussion tonight with our board discussion. We'll see how we get through that other piece, but I think we'll have more to say at that meeting in June. But I appreciate the thought put into it and the reasoning behind it, and I'm not even going to start now talking about the impact that you've had on your 12 years at the board. And so I think we'll leave it at that. Any comments from the directors? We'll talk a little bit more about the process moving forward. I think the first step is we need to be able to make that an official. We need to officially accept the resignation. But first we had to.
I signed.
Okay.
And they, she like, she's not doing it, it's accepted. And you have to accept it.
Okay, with that, I might look for an amendment in the agenda tonight.
Madam Chair, if I may, in lieu of Director Grandesky's announcement, I move to amend the agenda to add an action item to declare the vacancy on the school board and a board discussion topic to discuss the application process.
Discussion. All right, seeing none, I believe we will do an all in favor, say aye vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes, resignation is accepted. And we will move the discussion about the application process to the end of the agenda. We can move the action item. Let's see. That'll be our last action item for tonight on the agenda. So thank you, Kate and board. We will move to superintendent report with Dr. West.
Thank you. I want to start by thanking Director Grandesky for all of her years of service. If my math is correct, 15 years since we started in 2011.
It wasn't something I planned. I retired in 2010.
That's remarkable. And as a still new superintendent, I want to thank you for the guidance that you've given me over the last couple of years, and especially for the history that you've been able to share in the progression of the school district and those things that are really important to a community like Forest Grove and Gales Creek and Dilly and Cornelius. There's a great deal of history in the walls of our schools. We have a lot of our staff who are students here. People care deeply about their schools and their communities, and you've represented that in a way that has been really helpful to me as I've learned to engage with the community and support the students, the Forest Grove School District. So thank you for that. You'll be missed. A couple of other quick comments. One, I'm going to talk about security and just highlight an experience that I had at Forest Grove High School this morning. I stopped by the high school for a visit and to do a little bit of policy work with our equity policy team. And as I was walking in the door, instead of going right to the office, I saw a student coming out of the door. So I thought, well, I'll just sneak right in there and go right into the foyer there. And she stopped me. So this high school student put a hard stop in front of me and said, "You cannot enter this way. You have to go through the office." And I was absolutely tickled by that. I felt so proud in that moment that a high school student, we have some high school students sitting out here, but that a high school student would have the confidence to stop somebody that they didn't know at the door and say, "No, I'm not going to let you into this space. You need to enter through the high school, or through the office. That's how we do it here." So I wanted to call attention to that because, one, good on her. That was fantastic and the right thing to do. But two, I think it illustrates for our community who may be listening tonight, the seriousness with which our school administrators, our staff, and especially our students take security of our buildings. That is not the first time that I've experienced such an event in our school district. It's just fresh in my mind because it happened this morning and she was so emphatic. But I do think that the more we talk about this, the more we practice our routines, the more comfortable we get in declaring that these are our spaces and we're going to keep them safe. So wanted to bring attention to that. The second thing is what you see up and around the room here. This is a working space for us. It's not just a boardroom. We conduct quite a bit of professional learning in this space throughout the school year, in addition to many other types of meetings. All of these different charts that you see around the room this evening are for a professional learning event that will start tomorrow. It's GLAD training for educators in grades K through 12. GLAD is an acronym that stands for Guided Language Acquisition Design. It's a specific way of structuring lesson activities so that content is comprehensible for students who are learning in maybe more than one language at a time, or who are in English-only environments, but English isn't their first language. And so GLAD strategies, which you see represented around the room here, are everything from pictorial inputs, which behind Director Truax there, you can see an example of that, where we have images and then labels and descriptions of those images. Sometimes we create these charts in Spanish, sometimes we create these charts in English. It really depends on what is most supportive to the students. But from input charts like that, we progress from there to building out different types of organizers so that we start to make sense of the information that we are learning in a classroom. And then we co-create, for example, behind our student advisor, we might co-create paragraphs together that represent what we're learning about. In this example, the Mayan civilization. And all of those different steps within the learning progression lead to a point where students can independently speak about a subject, write about a subject, read about a subject. And these strategies are critically important because when you are learning in a new language, receptive language comes before production language. And so students are learning constantly, but they may not have the language skills yet to actually share with us what they are learning. These types of scaffolds give students the language that they need to actually produce a response to the different questions that we're asking. It also gives them an opportunity to practice language. It's not just written. We have oral routines associated with all of these different charts that you see. And most importantly, it reduces the cognitive load that is associated with learning a new language. For those of us who have learned a second or third or more language, it is an incredible cognitive burden. You go home really tired at the end of the day. And so when we can break things down in a way that lowers that cognitive load, the content is more accessible to students. So these strategies are critically important, especially in a district like ours, where we educate so many students who are learning in more than one language at a time, or for whom English is not their first language. And being able to educate across our grade spans just makes us better educators in the long run. So we have educators within the school district who are trained as GLAD trainers so that we can sustain this training on our own. And tomorrow is another iteration of that process. But I wanted to share what all of these different charts are that you see around the room because they're critically important to the work that we do as educators. That's all I've got for today.
Okay. I will add that the facilitators who were here tonight, just as we were coming in, did write out some of the dates and invited the board. I'll get this out to the board to come and observe that process. And then again, in the summer, they have to be presenting in front of kids and they're going to be assessed and you have to get their certifications. So it's kind of a 1-2 punch. So there'll be some opportunities this summer to come and watch that in action. And thanks to them for all the work they're doing. It's a lot. Okay, I don't think we have a report from Forest Grove Education Association tonight. I didn't think so. Unscheduled public appearance, none. And so we'll move to consent agenda. The consent agenda is made up of routine, non-controversial items to be voted on under one motion. Are there any items within the consent agenda a board member or the superintendent wishes to discuss separately? Seeing none. I'll
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
second discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. We do not have presentations tonight. We're going to move right to action items. The first one with Dr. Kim Shear, Director of Student Services, about feedback.
Hello. Okay. I'm bringing, I think I have a slide here. So I'm bringing tonight our community-based activity program. We contract with every summer to provide learning experiences for students who qualify for extended school year services. Those are students that have IEPs. It's one of the ways in which we provide services to students. We also provide our own programming as well. A little bit about the community-based activity program, otherwise known as CBAP. Some of you on the board are already very familiar with it. It partners students with and without disabilities together and adults in different learning experiences, a lot of them adventure-based, outdoor, recreational, social, emotional, and they're student-centered activities. They focus on those 3 core areas: building relationships, community engagement, and practicing skills. And so this is one of the ways that we provide services to students that have those needs during the summer. This contract allows for us to have 55 students attend the program, and we usually fill all of those every summer, maybe give or take a few. This year, the contract is $209,000 for an estimate of 55 students, and we're requesting board approval for that contract for the summer.
Any questions?
I have a question regarding kind of who, like, is it the school board or is it whomever runs CBAP that kind of coordinates and organizes what the day-to-day is going to look like and what the program will be? It's actually a partnership. The Community-Based Activity Program is a nonprofit organization that has kind of a base foundation of what they do, but they meet with us before the summer starts to kind of talk about what the summer's gonna look like, how many students we have, what kind of training we need to do. We partner with them on providing training for students. Students qualify through their IEPs, and then we kind of determine which program they're selected for.
Okay, and then, yeah, and then how does the hiring process look like for, kind of the staff and assistants?
That's all done through the CBAP. So they have their own process that they run. They hire and pay for all their staff.
Kim, I do have a question. So you said the slots are 55 students. For 55 students, approximately how many students, anyone in an IEP would qualify for this?
It would need to be, the ones that would qualify under this contract would need to be on an IEP, and they qualify for extended school year services. It's a section on the IEP that talks about different criteria that a student may or may not meet in different areas. And then we provide summer opportunities in a 6-week program. We also run an academic program through the district as well. CBAP does do private-based contracting, so parents can reach out to CBAP. They can apply through their process, and they can contract on their own or pay for the services on their own if they want.
Okay, so do we increase slots or are we keeping them usually right around 50?
That's about what we've used about 50-ish every year. We haven't really seen the need, and we keep a pretty good balance, I think, with them, so they can have, there's kids from other districts that they have paying for programs, and so it gives a pretty good mix. Kids get to meet other kids from other districts, and so I think that's a pretty good balance we've maintained.
Yeah, thank you.
Other questions? You want me to make a motion? Okay, I make a motion to approve the contract as presented.
Second.
Do we need to be more specific on the motion or set?
Do you want me to read the whole thing?
Yes, please.
Do you want me to read the whole thing? Sure. Okay. This contract allows the district to provide extended school year services to students enrolled in Forest Grove School Districts through the Community-Based Activity Program. Students with individual education plans, IEPs, who meet the criteria will receive specially designed instruction and related services at CBAP. The contract commences on June 22, 2026, and continues through July 30th, 2026. The total cost for the summer of 2026 is $209,000 with an estimate of 55 students.
Second.
Oh, you want me to read that?
We're getting there. And
Okay, I move to approve the contract of special services for the community-based activity program as presented.
second, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Right.
Opposed? All right, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Cam, for the detail and for the slide sharing the whole. All right, the second action item is with Enrique Pinion, our technology. Enrique.
Hi, good evening. Good evening, thank you. This is the time of year where we come requesting approval for all the different renewals that we have to do for our different subscriptions, licenses, systems that we have. So I apologize, I have a few that I'll be going through. But the first one we have before you tonight is the renewal of our voice licensing. This is basically the software and systems that manages our internal voice systems, like our voicemail, our call management, things like that. We have connected to our external voice provider. So this particular item is to renew the Cisco voice licensing agreement for the 26-57 school year, which covers the maintenance, support, and licenses for voicemail and call management. This is being purchased through our Cisco official partner, CDE Technologies. This is under a state of Oregon pricing agreement. This is a 5-year pricing agreement that is billed annually and will fix annual pricing through 2020, 2030, 2031 school year. The total cost of the entire period of time is $301,700, and the annual cost is $60,340. So the cost for the next 26-27 school year is the $60,340. This is through the general fund, again, is through the master agreement, state master agreement. One of the reasons that we did go with the 5-year agreement instead of doing 1 year, if you've been paying attention to some of the pricing changes that a lot of vendors have been putting in, the price difference between just for 26, 27, if we didn't go with a 5-year instead of the 1 year, it'd be $20,000. It was in the best interest of the district to look and get options. We got 1, 3, and 5-year options. And based on our experience and our plans, the 5-year was the best option for the district, just to maintain some stability and guarantee or kind of lock in those lower prices. So FGSD administration recommends that the board approve the purchase of our Cisco voice license from renewal under a 5-year pricing agreement for a total cost of $301,700. That brings the annual cost of $60,340 from CBE Technologies.
Questions? Dr. Trax.
Yeah, thank you for the report, Rick. The question I have goes back to the $301,700 and the $60,340. Are we doing the same thing twice when we do that? I mean, we approved the $301,000. And that is the assumption that it's gonna be $60,340 for each of the next 5 years. Then why don't we just say $301,000 in 5 yearly installments for the next 5 years? Approving the first year, I'm assuming we're coming back next year with another.
My understanding, Eileen might be able to correct me, is that by approving the full 5-year, then we don't necessarily have to come back each year for the next 4 years.
Yeah, that's what I was getting, but then I see that the other part of the motion was to approve the $60,000 payment.
Right, that I just wanted to make sure that it was broken out so you knew exactly what the expenditure was going to be for this upcoming school year. Not that we were going to spend the full 301 this upcoming school year.
Okay.
Just to give you the.
Yeah, I got that too. I just
Yeah.
wanted to make sure that we don't have a school board that has to deal with this year in and year out, and if we have a 5-year agreement.
Right,
And
yeah.
we've locked-
So approving it tonight, we
The
won't
good
have to
thing
approve it the next 4 years.
The good thing is that we've locked in that
Yeah.
$60,000 per year.
Correct.
Thank you.
I had a quick question regarding kind of the locking in of that price. Is there anything that states that any changes or if anything were to happen, that price would go up, or is it just?
No, so this basically, if they instituted, which actually they are going to be instituting new pricing over the summer, we would not have to pay that higher amount. So, yeah, saves us from having to do that.
I move to approve the purchase of our Cisco voice licensing renewal under a 5-year pricing agreement for a total cost of $301,700 and an annual cost of $60,340 from CBE Technologies.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. Google Workspace renewal. Item number 3, please.
Thank you. So the next item is for the renewal of our Google licensing. So our district does utilize the Google Workspace suite for staff and students. So we went and requested pricing again. Similarly, we asked for pricing for 1, 3, and 5 years. Because of some of the price changes that they're saying are coming this summer, it was in our best interest to look at those 3 and 5 year options. And given our history, there is no immediate inclination that we would be changing, moving away from Google better there for now. So we would be purchasing the renewal for 26, 27 and going with a 3-year agreement with Google. This is through OETC, which is kind of a purchasing consortium for the state of Oregon. So we've purchased under their RP contract that they already have. So they already have this pricing agreement to lock in that better pricing, Google. So this would be a 3-year agreement that is billed annually and a fixed annual pricing through 2028 and 2029. The total cost over the 3 years would be $116,640, broken down from annual cost over the 3 years of $38,800. So the recommendation to the board is to approve the purchase of our Google Workspace licensing renewal under a 3-year pricing agreement. For a total cost of $116,640, which comes out to an annual cost of $38,800.
Questions?
I have a comment. I appreciate the planning ahead. The opportunity to save money and get a commitment from these companies to bite the bullet, as it were, to guarantee that what we're gonna be paying 2 years down the road is pretty much fixed, and I appreciate that. That seems to be wise management, and I will give you and Greg full credit on that kind of planning. Thank you again.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Sure. Yeah.
Google Workspace licensing, is that just using Google Classroom and allowing students to have a Google account? Is that what that is?
It does cover that and much more. The Workspace suite for education covers everything on the back end as far as our email management, security features, classroom, the full, I guess, production suite of like Drive and slides and things like that. And it, again, offers us different kind of back end tools to help manage accounts, manage student access, things like that.
And then this might be too detailed, but I'm curious, do students who graduate still have access to the Google email, or do they lose access immediately after they graduate?
Once they graduate, then they do lose access to their to the district account. But there is a mechanism by which that, because a lot of students like to maybe keep different things that they've written or created, like there might be useful notes that they've taken. So students do have a mechanism to kind of save that and carry it with them forward. Yeah, but they would not have access anymore into the district account after they graduate.
And what about students that go the 5th year or have credits to still work?
They would continue, as long as they're still enrolled in our district, and they would continue to have access.
I move to approve the purchase of our Google Workspace licensing renewal under a 3-year pricing agreement for a total cost of $116,640 and an annual cost of $38,800 for OETC.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Microsoft licensing.
So more vendors. So along with Google, the district also does have licensing with Microsoft, which is required based on the fact that a lot of our infrastructure on the back end are Microsoft servers. We have Microsoft directory servers, things like that. And because of that, we're required to purchase their licensing. So this is again a licensing renewal with them for 26 and 27. Just as with the others, we went and looked at multi-year agreements to see if there was any savings there. With Microsoft, actually, they did not offer any savings going to a multi-year agreement, so it didn't make any sense to really go with one. In fact, the options just weren't there from the vendor. This was again through that consortium, OETC, that gets that locked-in pricing through the RFP process, but that also protects us a little bit from pricing changes because they are required to maintain the pricing they submitted as part of their proposal to the RFP. So for that, then we're recommending board approval to purchase the Microsoft licensing renewal for the 26-27 school year from OETC for $58,397.69.
Questions?
Madam Chair, I move to approve the purchase of the Microsoft licensing renewal for the 26-27 school year from OETC for $58,397.69.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Everybody's getting a lot of satisfaction at checking these off the list, so we're up to number 5. The whole board is like,
Almost there.
oh, it's good. Thank you.
So the next one before you is a renewal of our web or internet filter that we use here in the district. which is currently branded as Cisco Umbrella, but they're going through a kind of a branding change, so it's now called Cisco Secure Access. And this again, as well, we went and asked the vendor to give us pricing for 1, 3, and 5 years, and also to check for any pricing changes that they already have in their pipeline plan, which they do. So after looking at the different options, we did find that going with the 5-year pricing agreement, and after also checking with our educational service district, Northwest Regional, because as you may know, we have a lot of services that are provided as part of our core services. But one of the ones that they do not provide anymore explicitly is the web filter pieces. They do ask districts to go out and get their own. While they do have kind of a baseline, we do need to provide something that's a little more robust and something we have better management control over. So that's why we've been utilizing the Cisco Umbrella web filter. So with this renewal, we found that because of some price changes, again, where on this one, I think it was going to be about $15,000 more if we didn't go with a multi-year. We found that the 5-year agreement was the one that was in the best interest of the district. So we're requesting, and again, this is under the state contract that CDE Technologies has with their Cisco pricing. So our recommendation is for the board to approve the purchase of our Cisco Secure Access licensing renewal under the 5-year pricing agreement for a total cost of $135,240, which breaks down to an annual cost of $27,048 from CDE Technologies.
Questions?
Just a quick question. What is the percentage increase we're seeing on these? Because these are all coming from the general fund, correct? Approximately, what's the increase? Do you know? Have roughly an idea?
From last year, I could pull it up in just a moment. I think this is about a 5% increase, 5 to 10%. And if we didn't do the multi-year, it was going to be more like 20% increase, 20 to 25%.
Thank you.
And is there ever a scenario where we're in a 5-year agreement, but in year 3 or 4, something changes and we needed to go with a different company? Is there a penalty for pulling out of that agreement, or are you locked in? And
there's always fine print. I never had the experience of actually opting out of future years. I don't know, potentially if anyone else has some experience with that. Sometimes I've seen where there's language that would allow you, but the penalty might be where you have to pay out the remainder of the term unless you can come up with an agreement with the company.
There are typically within contracts termination clauses where either the district or the contracting party could terminate for a variety of reasons. Force majeure is a good example of that, where a hurricane blows away a data center. There's not much you can do about that. So that language is typical in a contract. There are other reasons why we may end up terminating a contract at some point. If they don't fall within those specified reasons, there could be a penalty associated with that, but that is spelled out in the terms of the contract.
I move to approve the purchase of our Cisco Secure Access license renewal under a 5-year pricing agreement for a total cost of $135,240 and an annual cost of $27,048 from CBE Technologies.
Second.
any discussion?
Yes, I do have one comment. It's not a question or anything. This is a good thing because I do recall when I was in the classroom in the high school, the ESD's filter shut down. And I was trying to get much needed information for my class that morning, and it was denied. And I wrote a rather nasty email to the people at the ESD. And they got back to the principal at the high school that I had done this. And he came in and he was not pleased with me. And he said, what do you think they would happen if every teacher wrote in and complained about that kind of stuff? And I said, it wouldn't happen anymore. Because if you had all the teachers who were angry about that writing in, they made darn sure that they would clean up their act and wouldn't do those kinds of things and wouldn't have that happen. That was not the answer he was expecting, so he and I agreed to disagree on that. Other than that, Bob Schlegel was a great guy. And I don't know why I said told all of that, other than the fact that I just wanted to wax philosophical, I guess. You gotta tell me to shut up.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, Dell server support renewal.
I'll wait to the end. This last one is the renewal of the support agreement for our physical servers, which are Dell servers. So this is the manufacturer's, which you can call like an extended warranty that we're adding on it from Dell. So it's kind of sole source directly from Dell to extend their support for these servers. And this is for the 26-27 school year. But again, we did go to Dell and ask them whether or not there was any price breaks for multi-year. And based on the pricing changes that they're planning, we did find that going with a 3-year agreement, pricing agreement with Dell, was going to provide us with some savings. And then based on the expected lifespan of the servers, that was going to fit in well with our plans for them. So this is billed directly from Dell Financial Services because the vendors that contract with Dell, they're resellers. If you're doing multi-year, it's through what Dell financing. So we're invoiced by Dell, but it's through their reseller, SHI. They're the ones that provide us the quote. So that's why you see there, the vendor's SHI, but it's billed by Dell Financial Services. So that's actually who we would write the PO for, directly to Dell through their financing. So the recommendation for the board is to approve the purchase of our Dell server support renewal under a 3-year pricing agreement. For a total cost of $97,268.24, which comes out to an annual cost of $35,154.91 from SHI and to be billed by Dell Financial Services.
Questions?
Madam Chair, I move to approve the purchase of our Dell service support renewal under a 3-year pricing agreement. Total cost of $97,268.24 and an annual cost of $35,154.91 from SHI and billed by Dell Financial Services.
Second.
Wow. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you, and we did hear a presentation of all those. We're gonna move to action item 7 that's been added through amendment, declaration of school board vacancy. At this time, wait a second. We did approve this. Give me just a second here. I think we're gonna move to first read and we'll go to board discussion for applications. We gotta need an action on.
We modified the agenda. But is there an action?
To do the action item, okay. All right, okay. At this time, the board will consider declaring a school board vacancy effective June 10th, 2026, and approving the process and timeline to appoint a qualified individual to serve the remainder of the term through June 30th, 2027. The board's goal is to post the application for interested community members on Thursday, May 29th, 2026. Applications will be made available through the district website and other district communication channels to help ensure the broad community awareness and participation. Following the application period, the board anticipates reviewing applications and conducting candidate interviews during the month of June, with the goal of completing the appointment process and seating the new board member by the end of June 2026. This process is intended to provide a transparent, fair, and timely opportunity for qualified individuals interested in serving students, staff, and community of the district. At this time, I'll ask for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that the board declare a vacancy on the school board effective June 10th, 2026, and approve the proposed process and timeline for appointing a qualified individual to serve the remainder of the term through June 30th, 2027.
Discussion. I'm gonna start with discussion on this one. I think there were multiple things at play here. One, we needed to, as a board, wait for Kate to come to that decision. Tonight is the first time we are kind of officially hearing from Kate directly that this is the timeline she's envisioning for her last meeting. I am not personally comfortable yet voting on. I'm comfortable with the effective date, as Kate has requested that the effective date. I'm not comfortable yet with approving a process and timeline. Just me personally, I'd like to take some time tonight during the board discussion and just talk through some application process questions with the board and get some thoughts on what we think this timeline and process could look like. I'm not saying that this isn't a timeline we could use. Again, we defer to OSBA and all boards that do an appointment process, and there's some standard protocols that boards can take, timelines that are important to consider, but I think each board is unique in what they need. So I'm actually a no on this particular motion for that part. I would be interested to hear from the board in the discussion or thoughts and potentially look for an amendment to accept the resignation.
By timeline, do you mean the fact that an application will be made available on the 29th?
That, and I think we as a board can decide how that vacancy is opened, how long that might need to be opened, what happens if we want to extend that opening or close that opening. I think there's multiple pieces as a board that we need to talk through. This is just me talking at the discussion point.
I think I agree with the timeline. I think the application can open on the 29th might be a little too soon before we're able to kind of really talk about it and have a discussion. My only question is, you mentioned kind of like policy, where does that work? Is there a timeline by which we have to fill?
No, in fact, the board actually does not have to fill a position at all. We can run until the next election with 4. So that's a prerogative as a board. I think one of the things, I mean, between now and Thursday, should we talk in discussion tonight, which we've now added time to do, about this application draft that we have, and that's based originally on the OSBA suggested draft and kind of making some personal adjustments based on our board. We may, during discussion tonight, get to a point where we feel like this seems, we're ready, we're comfortable to post. But I'd rather work through all that with the board during discussion. And then potentially, I think we can't make a action item after I think we can, let's decide first on this motion. So I'm a no on this motion as is. I would be interested in an amended motion to declare the vacancy effective June 10th and approve, and actually just declare the vacancy.
Well, if the seconder withdraws their second, I will withdraw my motion and restate the motion for just declaring the vacancy effective June 10th, 2026. And we can have another motion later on going through the process, because you're right. The process is very, very elastic as far as who, as far as selecting a replacement. And I think that's part of the transparency. Democracy is incredibly messy at times, and this is one of those times. We are being asked to, I won't say go into uncharted territory, but this is not an everyday occurrence. It did seem that way when I was mayor. We had 4 occurrences within a year. So that was a little different, but the process basically and the philosophy is the same, to allow those people who are qualified, who are interested, who have a passion for public education, to express their interest and to state their best case to be the selection of the school board. I do think waiting until the next election to have a replacement is unacceptable to me, because for the basic math reason that we would have 4 members and a 2-2 vote is entirely possible, maybe not likely, but possible. And you can't get much accomplished when you're voting 2-2 on a variety of issues. And we are entering a period of time that is absolutely crucial for the funding of public education. So we need to be able to speak with one voice and to get the idea across that Forest Grove School Board is not without leadership, more is not supplying leadership. 2-2 votes have a tendency for the public to say what the devil is going on. I don't know if any of that makes any sense, but I sort of agree with you that, and I hopefully have lined out a process by which we don't have to vote on this motion, or we can vote on a replacement motion.
Who was the second?
I can withdraw my second.
So I will withdraw the motion, and in place of it, I will submit that I move that the board declare a vacancy on the school board effective June 10th, 2026.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? All right, thank you. We're gonna move first read. We don't, that's just there for us, but I might have Dr. West just mention.
Just briefly, yes, thank you. Within your documents tonight is a contract between the Forest Grove School District and the Forest Grove Police Department to renew our SRO contract for the 26-27 school year. This agreement was written in collaboration with the new Chief Marzilli. I do want to call out just a couple of things. One, Officer Youngs will be here at the June 9th board meeting to share a second report for the year. So we'll get an update from him on how the year has progressed. Two, you'll note as you read the contract that the value of the contract is for half the salary. That is the agreement with us and the Forest Grove Police Department. So we basically pay for the time that the SRO is supporting Forest Grove School District schools. There is a period of the year where the SRO, of course, isn't doing that, where he or she or they are conducting regular police business. So that's why you don't see the full salary embedded within the contract there. And then third, there has been quite a bit of conversation among the board to have a second SRO. And Chief Marzilli and I are in agreement that that is something that we want to pursue. The Forest Grove Police Department feels like they need to secure the one position first, make sure they have the funding for the second position before they go after that. There are some other vacancies within the police department that they want to focus on as well. When the Forest Grove Police Department is ready to have a conversation about a second SRO, which could be at any point during the school year, we will come back to the school board with an amendment at that time.
I actually did have a question in the contract. Down towards the end, it talks about feedback that the SRO gets from students and families and parents about how they're doing. And I'm wondering when Sam comes to do the presentation, if we could see within that presentation what that feedback has looked like, what mechanism is used to gather the feedback and who gives that. And I'm also curious about what that, and maybe that's not our business, but since it is an MOU, what is the evaluative side from the police department? So what are they looking for from their point of view to know if this is an effective partnership and if it's meeting the outcomes that are listed there?
Yeah, I don't think that's part of what Officer Youngs is planning to bring when he comes on the 9th. I can have some conversation with him ahead of time, see if he can gather that information. He is evaluated first and foremost as a police officer, and his duties happen to coincide in our schools quite a bit. So I'll have some conversations with Chief Marzilli about what that possibly could look like. He is evaluated as a police officer, gets feedback from us, but that's really a separate process. So let me see what I can do. Okay.
I had a question kind of regarding the language that's in this agreement and who came up with, I guess, who initially wrote this and what does amendment look like if amendments were to be made? What's that process look like?
I don't know who the original author is. There has been an SRO in Forest Grove School District before my time. So I'm assuming that the prior chief of police was involved and maybe there's somebody within cabinet here who remembers when we. I'm not seeing anything. Okay, so it's been a while. So I would just say certainly Chief Ryman, since he was a chief for so long. And then probably whatever superintendent was in place at the time the original agreement was written. In terms of amendments, we look at the contract every single year. And we identify where we may need to make some changes. For example, last year with Chief Ryman, we made a couple of tweaks in terms of what training the SRO would attend. So maybe it's common to make small changes to the contract as we go along. Different from an amendment where we're adding or detracting during the course of the contract term. The kind of changes that we make on an annual basis don't show up in the amendment. We revise as we renew. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Any questions? All right, thank you. Okay, we're gonna move to,
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was asleep at the switch there. I guess my first question is, one summer we had a terrible, terrible accident in which 5 students were killed. And the SRO at the time was not with Forest Grove Police Department, but Washington County Sheriff's. And they submitted a report, they investigated the death of these students, even though it occurred not on school grounds and not on school time. He investigated. Now, is that, and I think at the time they assumed that that was part of the responsibility of the school resource officer to investigate those tragedies that impact students at Forest Grove High School, even though it was during the summer. I was wondering if there was any discussion about those kinds of incidents that involve students, but not on district property, not on district time, not at a school-sponsored or sanctioned event. What is the role of the school district in that investigation? And would there be any monetary responsibility on the part of the district for that officer's investigation time?
School district does not investigate crimes that occur outside of the school. We don't prosecute crimes. So that falls entirely within Washington County Sheriff or the police. In the tragedy scenario that you're describing, we likely would not be involved in investigation nor have any financial obligation to the police department if they were to send the SRO to investigate. I will tell you that based on my experience last summer with the SRO that we had at that time and the transition with Officer Youngs, it is typical for the SRO to continue to be involved in any sort of police response that involves students when they are on duty. And that's because they have relationships, they get to know the kids, they understand our systems, our structures, how they might be able to support students as they return to our school systems in the fall. But just like any other job, police officers are not on duty 24/7. So it could be, depending on when the incident occurs, that there's another officer that responds. Long way to say, no financial obligation to us if they are responding when they are not technically on contract with us. And I think the Forest Grove Police Department is particularly good at ensuring that the SRO is responsive when on duty that involves young people. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, yes, it does. Yeah.
all right, so we're gonna move to board discussion. We've added board vacancy application. And that is gonna be in your, out of this agenda, but linked to your agenda, a separate document that's on the computer, unless you have your own copy of it with you, but. So I'll give the board just a minute to get to that. It's board application draft. Bethany's linked it back on the main page. All right.
No, because the computers,
It's,
I'm an idiot, none of those things.
no, it's fine. We'll find it.
I'll get it, I'll
find
get it, I'll get it, I'll get it.
No problem. The board has had access to this as a draft, and it's again, OSBA, kind of more from an OSBA draft. It's a general draft about applications. Before we talk about that though, I don't want to spend a lot of time, but I did want to bring it to the board because Director Truax had asked about the possibility of attending the OSBA summer conference. And the conversation I had with him during that conversation was, I want to think about bringing it to the board because I want to hear our perspectives on. My recommendation would be to move this discussion in general about how we attend conferences, what our engagement is going to be to the summer retreat. So that we can talk more. First, I've asked for some clarification about where in our budget when someone does go to a conference, we pay for that. And then also looking forward about when we're attending the OSBA conference in particular, what is the value we bring back from that as a board? And is this where we want as our board focus to be? However, I'm bringing it tonight because that summer conference, and I'll have Pete talk to you a little bit. OSBA's removed their summer conference. It used to be a summer conference, which was OSBA Light, and it was really an opportunity for newer board members. Lisa, you might have attended last year, so I'll have to go speak about that. And I think the model this summer is the same, where it's more focused on kind of newer board members, a chance to network and get up to speed, and even different change in leadership to be able to attend. But the focus now, I think OSBA is really leaning heavy towards growing the fall conference to be able to have more boards attend that. So that is our once a year chance to really meet together as boards and learn about policy updates and also network with each other. That's just part of a broader conversation of how we want to use that small amount of funding that we do use. And I think last year we did not use it all. We just sent a couple of people to the conference. So for tonight though, because the deadline for that summer conference is coming up, Pete, can you talk a little bit about your thinking about why you're bringing that to the table?
Well, as a new member of the board, I attended last summer's summer conference in Salem. And found it, some of the stuff was old. I mean, it was old me, it was the standard boilerplate stuff you do as an elected official. But some of it was, again, approaching all of that legislation from a school, an education viewpoint. And that was helpful to me. What was also helpful was the opportunity to meet with board members from around the state. And truth be told, that probably is the bigger of the two of those items. The opportunity to sit around the coffee table and share what works, what doesn't work, what questions you have. That kind of thing, to me, is a crucial part of those kinds of meetings. I think they are very rich in the opportunity, again, to get to know the makeup of a particular group of people. The OSBA board, for example. Also the opportunity to meet with other officials, legislative officials, senators, representatives, Secretary of State, State Treasurer, those people also come to those meetings. And it's nice to be on a first name basis with them. last but not least, we have sat through our share of Zoom meetings. We sat through our share of Zoom meetings, we sat through everybody's share of Zoom meeting. And while they are incredibly convenient, they are also, to me, a block on communication. As a teacher of communications, what you say is important, obviously. How you say it, the inflection of your voice is important. Your body language is crucial to that. And some of those nonverbal cues don't come through in a telephone conversation or in a Zoom meeting. People can't see that I'm pouting or getting madder and madder or getting more and more bored. It is incredible what you pick up from a meeting when you are face to face and across the table from your colleagues. So that's the unwritten part of what I think is, and why I think these kinds of meetings are important. You get the opportunity to see what the drift is around the state. You also get the opportunity to say, that's a good idea, or that is a horrible idea. And we ought to send it kicking and screaming into the night, never to be heard from again. And I think those are the kinds of things that you miss when you say, okay, we can save a couple of dollars and dimes by just meeting electronically. To me, that doesn't work. Zoom calls don't make it. Instant messages don't make it. Emails don't make it. They are crucial, but they're not the best part of it. They come in a 4 seconds of face-to-face conversation. That's why I would like to have the opportunity to attend those, and I think it would be worthwhile for other board members to do that on a rotating basis at best.
I think over the years, the fall conference and the summer conference have been very good. In the beginning, in 2011. And then I think after COVID, seemed like they sort of lost their focus. But regardless, I agree with Pete, is talking to people from around the state is absolutely critical. Lots of good ideas came, some more connections with different people and programs that were working, reading programs, writing programs. They had some very well renowned speakers that I thought were really insightful. People ate together at lunchtime and shared. I think it's a really good experience to also meet and talk to board members in our Washington County, also another opportunity. I know we have a dinner in January, but I think it's a good opportunity. We used to go to Bend for 3 days, but now we go to Salem, but I think the fall conference is good. But I have been disappointed that the programs haven't been very robust in the last few years, and that's a disappointment because before they were absolutely wonderful.
I attended the summer conference when I got this position. I thought it was a great introduction to what it meant to be a school board member and what expectations were had of me, as well as how OSBA kind of collaborated with school boards around the state. So I thought it was a good introduction. I found it very valuable, not only as both of you have mentioned, being able to interact face to face with their school board members in the state, but also having differing perspectives. I had a lot of conversations with individuals who I may not have agreed with, but I appreciated the conversation and their stances and what they were deciding as a school board within their school district. I think it added a level of understanding that I feel like I would have not been as prepared for if I wouldn't have gone. So I think it's a very valuable conversation to go to. Mind you, I've only been to one, so I don't know how they've gotten better, evolved, and I can't speak to that, but I can speak to my personal experience, and I thought it was great. I got to meet Hillsborough School Board. That was a great experience of just networking and getting to see neighboring districts' perspectives and kind of how they're running things. So I liked it. I thought it was good. I think if budgeting is an issue, if it's like rotating like we don't have to go to every years, but every other year would be a good opportunity to go to. I cannot speak anything other than I believe it, so.
What I'm wondering about then is if this board is okay with having further discussion in leadership and just consolidating and looking at the budget and getting more specific numbers and costs and dates of what's when, and then bringing it to the next meeting for just a follow-up conversation. So we have a better idea of kind of where we are budget, but also we have a potentially new person that may join when that's happening. That might be an opportunity for that person to be able to attend as well. So we can sort of maybe wrap that up together in summary in leadership and get it back out to the board and bring it to the meeting on the 10th. That sounds reasonable.
I always thought that there was a line item for, the board. That
There is, yeah,
line item.
there's a couple other, there's some other pieces to that. I just like to put it together for new board members and explain that there's this. I don't think we've really gone through that as a board, and then we'll all be kind of on the same page.
Do we want to have that as part of the conversation during our retreat?
Yeah, well, and I think the conversation at the retreat is that and more. I mean, but you asked about the summer, and I believe the cutoff is in June, so we probably want to, if we are gonna make a quick decision on that, have a better idea of what we're making a decision about and bring that on the 10th. And then, we'll talk about it at the retreat on a bigger scale.
I'm good with that.
All right, okay, so let's move to the board vacancy application process. So there's a couple options. I think first what I'd like to hear from everybody is if there's anything on this application that really is maybe is a must-have, but I actually think I'd rather start with, is there anything on this application that seems like a duplicate question or something we wouldn't need? I do want to read this first opening statement. And I think we'll just kind of work through people's impression of the application itself and see where we get. I mean, potentially if we feel like at the end of this conversation, there's consensus that yes, this application captures probably what we need to capture. We could feel comfortable posting it on a certain day, which could be Thursday, and leaving it open for a maybe indefinite amount of time until the next meeting to see who we get, and then deciding at that next meeting, how much longer we want to leave it open and close. I think we can have that discussion after we sort of see where we are with this. We might discuss this and feel like, well, okay, this is a great first discussion, but now that we've had this, let's rework and let's come back to it and make sure we really have it as we want it. Up at the top, it does say we are looking for a candidate who works as a team player, remains student focused, and can collaborate effectively with the board members and the governance framework. An ideal appointee will support the district's strategic plan and show a dedicated capacity to prioritize the requirements of our whole school community when making policy and budgetary decisions. And I don't want to wordsmith that right now necessarily, but I think that's sort of what I've been hearing from the board individually of when you're doing an appointment, it is different than an elected position in that it is up to the 4 remaining board members. And Kate, I wanted to sneak this in with an amendment so we could start this conversation when you're still on the dais, because I think it is filling your position in particular, but it's also rounding out what I consider to be a really strong team headed together, Dr. West and the team in the same direction. So an appointment is at the discretion solely of the board. And that is where we can design this application for the type of person we're looking for to fill out this final year. So if we can start with Alma, and Alma, do you want to take us through like any questions in this particular list that you feel are duplicates or we may not need?
No, I know that we personally have talked about these. I don't think that there's any repeat necessarily. I do think that there is one that really sticks out to me, but
I don't know, yeah, okay. So it's question number 3. That one just kind of gives me, will give us an idea of the person, the appointed person or candidate. Just to kind of be able to understand if they will be open to collaborating professionally, listening to like different perspectives, separating that personal ideology from like district responsibilities and the support, the collaborative support and decision making. So I feel like this will all help also with us as a team and therefore brings it over to the community where it's essential to maintain that trust, that stability, and obviously that effective governance as well. So I think that's one of the questions that I really appreciate that we have on here.
So, and this makes me think that we need to put numbers next to these questions because I did not. So are you talking about a school board position is nonpartisan in nature?
Correct.
The school board advocates for legislation and policy that supports students in the school district, which at times may be at odds with a given political platform or agenda. How would you support the board's work if it is at odds with your personal and political views? How would you demonstrate the capacity to understand differing perspectives while contributing to the collective board decision?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, as a school board, we're regularly faced with like many controversial topics. So I think that question really helps us understand. I don't want to say that person comes with an agenda or anything like that, but just understands makes us really understand if they are coming in here to collaborate based on student needs, and not their individual needs or thoughts. So it is a question that I really do appreciate. Because again, we are regularly faced with controversial expectations.
What is that? I was going by alphabetical first names.
I think looking over it, I don't think there are any repeated questions. I do worry about kind of the language in the first question, only because it makes it sound very rigid. And I think this position can be, and it does require a lot of commitment. And I think that's well explained here, but I think it's also important to include that flexibility is allowed. And I right off the bat, when I'm reading this and I'm thinking back, because I still feel like I'm fairly new in this position and I'm still somewhat overwhelmed by all the things that we do. If I were to read this as when I was first thinking about running for this position, I honestly would be very discouraged. Because I would feel that like with outside life, outside responsibility, I wouldn't be able to commit to it. But I know now that I'm in this position, I am able to make that commitment. And so I'm wondering if there's just some change in language that we can do with question number 1.
Okay.
I mean, I'm more than happy to send some suggestions, but just as of now, question number 1 just seemed very, I don't know how to describe it other than like, I would see how an individual would just
Give you pause.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We can work on that one.
And I agree with Lisa. I felt the same way when I read that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think other than that, I think these questions are great. I appreciate the knowledge and governance questions. But I think it would also, I don't know, I think I wonder what our goals are, because when I first went into this, like I had a very limited knowledge of what like legislative advocacy looked like, and that was something that I wasn't opposed to. It was a learning process for me in the beginning. And I feel like, again, asking these questions, knowledge and governance, I feel like maybe something adding in there, like it's okay if you don't know what is your understanding, and just being encouraging of someone who's willing to learn rather than someone, like I'd rather have someone who's open to growth and experience and learning while they're in this position than someone who believes that they're already knowing of everything and comes in here with a fixed mindset. I want a growth mindset. And I feel like the knowledge and governance section, and maybe it applies to all these questions, but just adding in there, like if you are unaware, if you don't know, or you're not as well versed as someone else in the public, please don't feel discouraged from applying. We invite those kind of perspectives and we invite you to come in and have an opportunity to learn. And I think that's kind of my reflection about looking at through these questions and kind of just in parentheses, adding in, it's okay if you don't know, tell us what you do know. So that we can have more of a diverse selection of applicants with this process.
I'm wondering, how would you feel if we just did not have the knowledge and governance section? Is it necessary for us to have that section? Because is that just gonna be, as we say in the classroom, if the kids can Google and find the answer, right?
And that's
So,
what I feel like I think you're right. I think that's what it might encourage.
okay,
Well, I got rid of that. I'm so sorry. I think the questions are fine if if the individual chooses to kind of share their perspectives or what their understanding is. And I think that gives us an insight into how in tune are they with, like, have they gone to our board meetings? Are they aware of our budget? Are they aware of like the connection between the two? But I think just us as a board, when we look at his applicant's answers, we have some grace in knowing that an individual may not have all of this knowledge and have some understanding that based upon their responses, are they willing to have growth, or just adding in a question that says, if you know nothing about this, like, what steps would you take to learn more about this, or how would you further your knowledge in these areas if you have them right now?
okay.
I think that's it. I think those are my words.
I wouldn't miss any of those three questions. The one part that tell us what you know about the district's financial situation. That is the part I would be interested to see, because you're gonna have different people applying, and what is their perspective based on not looking for like, have you been to the meetings, but just how do you feel?
And
So,
I think removing them, we lose out on the, like, where are they? So I don't think we necessarily need to remove them. I think just adding in something at the beginning of the application, or reminders that, like,
okay,
even if you don't know, tell us what you do know. It doesn't, like, there is no right or wrong answer. I think it's gonna try to get at.
okay,
I think the knowledge of governance is kind of important as well, because although 7 does kind of, like you said, feel like you need to know about what's going on, I think 8 and 9 also kind of give a perspective where it, once you read it, it kind of tells you that we will face difficult moments within the board, and it kind of gets someone, I guess, prepared for the fact that there will be different opinions. So both of those questions I really like. And I think it just gets someone in the headspace of, I have to prepare for these difficult things that may or may not happen, but also to agree, disagree.
okay.
So maybe more conversational versus questions, is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Possibly, like, just, like, I don't think I necessarily mind the questions. I think just looking at this whole thing, I would like maybe in the beginning or something that simply just says, like, even if you don't know, or even if you don't, like, for this first one, like, what's the role of the school board and the role in relation to the superintendent? Going into this, I have no idea. Like, I knew no idea how that worked. And then I learned about it. I'm like, I will be completely honest, I really didn't know. And so looking at this, like, I would have been tempted to do some Googling and do some researching on my own, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I know what that relationship looks like. It just means of what I found on the internet, what my research says.
So maybe something like, we do not expect anyone applying to have full answers to all of these questions.
Yes, just tell us what you do know, what you want, we want to know your perspective, tell us what you do know. And I think that says it right there. I just like having some sort of reminder in parentheses, like, there is no right answer. It's just like, tell us about you and what your understanding is. And I think that gives us more insight into the individual and what would be a good fit for us.
Okay. Hey, Kate.
I really like the questions overall. I guess one question is, and maybe it's implied in here, is, you know, why are you interested in being on Smithwood? You know, I'm curious. Is that embedded?
It's not, and no, I mean, I agree with you in the sense that I've heard people say, I mean, everybody runs for the school board for all kinds of reasons, right? And that's their prerogative, but I have had people tell me, like, it's stepping stone, right? The school board is the first step, and then it's, you go to city council, then you go here. I've heard that.
And I'm doing that backwards.
Well, I know, exactly. He's working his way back down. But I think that's a really good point, Kate. Like, in this particular climate, for what we need to continue to work as a team, and Pete, you mentioned it earlier, someone that wants to work for the school system, not just be in an elected position and serve the community, but specifically why now and why the schools and why this team. I think that's a good point.
Yeah, and I like the other one, what strengths that you would bring to the board, what, sort of try to tease out, where would they want to put their passion on the board? I mean, each one of us do something different, and then some of us do the same. But that's made us a real well-rounded board. So I would be curious about that.
Anything else? Maya?
I kind of talked about the section I really liked, we kind of researched talking about that as well, which was the novelty and governance. But I also really appreciated question 10 and 11, because as you talked about, we've heard multiple times that school district is like a stepping stone to like the next place. But I like how it kind of mentions really advocacy, if anything, and how you really have to get involved if you're going to be in this position. I would say that 10 says, or 11 says one of the goals of the board is to engage in our schools. I think it would also kind of be smart to add the goals we talked about at the very beginning of this year, to either like the top or the very bottom, just so they have like knowledge of what those goals are. And then the other thing was, number 4, I really appreciated. Sometimes people come in kind of scared to have different opinions from the board, especially because we're all kind of people with opinions that we can back up and we'll gladly argue about. So I really appreciate this. Since it shows that yes, we do work as a team, but we are, here to represent the needs of everybody, not just a specific interest group.
Yeah, I had a little bit of stomach acid over the introduction. We're looking for a candidate who works as a team player. You mentioned team player in question, I think it was question 3. When you put it in the introduction like that as the first thing, that sort of gives it a level of importance that I don't think it deserves. Agreeing is good. Agreeing to disagree is also good. And I don't want people who disagree with me to be considered not a team player. Their opinions still have merit. And their opinions may persuade other people to change their viewpoint. And that is the purpose of discussion, is at a school board meeting, at a city council meeting, so on and so forth. So I would, you've told us not to wordsmith, so I won't wordsmith.
Well, you can wordsmith. I will counter though and say that you and I disagree all the time, and I consider you to be a very strong teammate. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to get at what.
Teammate and team player are two different things to me.
Well, and then I'll counter back to say that what I'm trying to capture here is people, and you know this from council as well, and we've seen this on all kinds of councils and boards, people come on or elected onto a council and board, and they're gonna get on there to do this one thing. They're doing this one thing. So that's different than we're having a discussion about high quality instruction and support materials we need for that in and we can maybe have disagreements about certain things, but we're still focused on this one goal, which is focused under the umbrella of the strategic plan. So I'm trying to get at the team player, like I guess someone that
Collaborate.
collaborate.
I would collaborate would be a better, a better terminology, because I agree with Director Truax. When I first read it, I felt like you were particularly maybe targeting a certain individual or a certain audience, and I agree with like Director Truax.
Collaborator.
Absolutely.
Someone who's willing to have a conversation, even if that conversation doesn't necessarily lead to all of us agreeing, at least a conversation can be had.
Because I look at other organizations, other governmental agencies, I won't mention them here, but disagreement in those agencies is tantamount to sedition, in the opinion of some people. And that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for articulate discussion. We're looking for honest disagreement. And as I said earlier, agree to disagree is a phrase that is beginning to get very, very trite, but it still packs some meaning. That we can disagree in agreeable ways. And that would be the message I would want to send to a potential board member, is that you have every right to hold on to your beliefs. You have every right to brandish the First Amendment. You also have the responsibility to brandish the First Amendment rights of Director Frank or Director Lozano. I'm not so sure about Director Grandusky, but it's a joke, it's a joke. But I'm trying to, the word team player means we're gonna agree even if we don't agree. And that's not the definition I want to put forward by this board, by this question. I'm gonna get yelled at here now.
So I want to layer, because again, my time on the OSBA and being around all kinds of boards around this state, I've said this before. What the culture we have on this board right now is very unique in that we are all understanding of the mission. I think we all agree with the mission and the strategic plan. We are able to have discussion, but based on fact, we do disagree with, I mean, I don't know if we necessarily disagree, but we can surface questions and critiques. What I have seen on plenty of other boards, and more than the ones I can count on two hands, are boards that do not speak to each other, boards that do not sit with each other at lunch, boards that for their community come across as greatly divided. So somewhere in between, I want to capture with an appointment. I mean, with an election, it's up to the community who sits on the board, but with an appointment, I want someone to understand that, at least this is just my personal opinion, my number one goal is to build a culture where we can collaborate respectively, but we also, a person that also values that piece. So maybe that's it, we can capture that. I think you captured it down here with this question of, Kate, why you want to be on this board at this time.
And I think question 3 also kind of encompasses a lot of what you were talking about wanting to make sure that, yes, we're working together, but also like it is a nonpartisan in nature. So like, can you push your own beliefs or something aside and go with what would be best for the school district? Not like you opinion wise, you're gonna dig your boots into whatever it is that you maybe disagreeing on. But really looking at it holistically, being like, this is what's best for the school district, or this is where our goals are aligning. And I think question 3 is a great job of doing that. And kind of gives us an insight into the individual and how they may, how they're gonna work with that.
So maybe we don't even need that opener, because maybe just by the answering of the questions, it will reveal the person who's applying.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think also having something explaining the role of the school board director. Now, our role is to hire the superintendent, evaluate the superintendent, and approve the budget. And one of the things that people come and they don't really know exactly the roles, so I think maybe we have to define that, to the applicant that, yes, we can give feedback in that, but our role is somewhat limited.
So maybe we link, because what I'm hearing is we link the goals, our school board goals to this right there. So nobody has to search around and find what those are. The legislative advocacy sheet that we created, Dr. West is linked. So people are, this is what we, and then a summary of roles of school board. What is the role of the school board? With the application there, so people when they're, okay.
And the other thing I think of is, the journey that I've been on, there's been different situations going down. But I'm thinking, and I've talked to you about this, Christie, is, what we're facing, financially going forward is, I think we need someone that is willing to do some advocacy in Salem. We really, well, let me put it this way, what would be our need and our goal for the next year to help, Dr. West and the district? And my thought was, and that was one of the reasons why I felt that I should resign now, is going to Salem and advocating. I mean, I've written letters and that, but I really feel that this is the time, personally, this is the time when we really, really need people to go there. And there'll be new people in November, in Salem, and we really have to get a good connection with Salem and have them really respect our district and our needs and be willing to call us, because that's what's been missing, is the decision-making for our school district, Washington County. I can't go across the state, but they're not, for whatever reason, they're not coming to us and saying, will this hurt you or will this not hurt you? And so, maybe think about a question related to what is going to be our need and our goal for next year. Because I think it's different now. I think we're in a different place.
That could be a question. And so, like, what does that individual think that as a school board, where should be your where next school? Is there what that next year should look like?
Well, maybe down with that one that says, number 5. What do you think this board is doing well and where do we need to improve? Maybe switch that then to like what does it seem like this board is doing?
Right there, what do we need? Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I also think question 10 needs to be reworded. Tell us what you know about legislative advocacy the board is currently engaged in. I think this is where I think you get the opportunity for an individual to say, this is what I think. I think the legislature has no clue what education is all about. I think that gives a person an opportunity to put themselves into this application. They were to say advocacy is crucial because without that advocacy, the legislature is operating in a vacuum. They are getting the viewpoint of 1, 2, 3, or 4 people and ignoring 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 because there's no avenue for those people to talk to the legislature because we've never done it before.
What qualifications does an individual have to be able to fill out like an age requirement? Or living within the school district, like will
Yeah,
that be?
the very bottom, we
Yeah,
can
right.
make sure we add that. I think 18,
18.
I think they have to be an eligible voter in the district.
and they have to live within the school district boundary, not
Yeah.
the city boundary. And they can't work.
Okay, sorry, like just including like. some-
Yeah, okay. Good point. Okay. Alma, any additional, I know you were first, but most of them have to be, okay.
No, I think it's good. I do think we should change that area. But, yeah. Now, going back to number 1 and talking about how, worded a little rigid, are we thinking of rewording this or taking it, what is that flexibility?
Yeah. And I think that's a conversation that this board, preferably with a new appointee, should we go that route by the retreat, have a deeper discussion about what that looks like. And we've had some really good individual discussions about that. I think one of my takeaways has been each board. This will be a good summer discussion, I think, too, but I think to be fair, each board probably will decide together our expectations for what flexibility looks like and what non-negotiables are for showing up based on who the board is itself and that agreement we made together. I think this board was new, so we've had a year now to sort of see what this is all about. And in the midst of all this year, we had quite a few big things happen. In addition to that, I know it was more time than I've ever spent doing the board work. This is my 3rd year. So I think this is a good question. And I mean, Teresa, I'll bring it back to you because you brought it up, like flexibility to me, the commitment means the commitment means to the board meetings. Like, these are the meetings where we meet in public and do the work. I think flexibility, as I have thought about it, was all the things we do behind the scenes to adjust schedules, to plan executive sessions around people's schedules, to be flexible with the one-on-ones, to Zoom or phone call a lot of the times, and even in these meetings, Zoom when we can. But I don't, to me, it might be just identifying what I like about number 1 is it really does identify the time. Because when I joined, it was like, there's only 2 meetings a month, and it is less than council, at least from my perspective. But it's a lot more than what it may seem. So accurately depicting it, so when someone is applying, they do have an understanding, I think is fair. I don't think we've quite defined what that is.
And I think I like the transparency. I like the communication of like, this is what it's going to look like and this is your commitment. And how actively engaged can you be? Because this is what we need as a board. Like the two what is it, 2 board meetings and 2 budget committee meetings in a single month. That's for the month of May. I think that's a great example. I think also possibly including what our calendar currently looks like. And I'll do that. That's like we know what that looks like. It's a 2-hour meeting, if not more, what executive sessions are. And I think kind of going back to what Kate had stated about what does it need to be on a board meeting? Like, what is an executive session? How is that different from a working session? How is that different from a budget meeting? And kind of giving many definitions of what that is. I think I personally going into it, I would have liked to recommend I'm a role person and I like to know what's being asked of me and what's defined. And I think if we have those definitions, being able to provide that so the individual who's applying has a holistic view of what that commitment looks like and what those requirements are. I personally have not counted how many hours. Is it really 15 to 20 hours that what that looks like?
That's probably depends.
Okay.
I think in a typical month, when you add the conversation, that, you know, the one-on-one conversations, the additional communication we have with Bethany, getting ready for meetings, the time we spend to read the packet and ask questions, and those are all things that probably aren't captured here. And I also think with this application, we can't, you know, we could go on and on. We could probably talk about this application for the next 2 months and get it like, here's the whole thing. But I think there's a certain point where we will be able to say generally this. And I think also this conversation, I think we should probably link. So people who are interested could say, hey, watch this discussion that the board had, right? And so they can hear from this, I think some of the process.
In the terms of flexibility, I think my idea or my understanding is like, we know when our meetings are, we know how long they take, or those are there. Are they flexible? If there's an emergency, like you can't make it, there's an emergency, that's fair, like we have that flexibility, but this is kind of what's expected and this is what you're expected to come to. There is no flexibility in saying like, oh, I have a minute that day, I can't do it. I'm sorry, like, these are fixed times, these are it's scheduled, it's routine at this point, and this is what those things are. And so an individual has an understanding of like, this is your commitment, and then you have to go, it's required. It's not necessarily required, but it's expected of you to go if you're going to be a successful board member in this position. It's not give it to someone else who does feel like they want to be here and they want to be in that position. I think that's kind of my understanding of what I mean by flexibility, kind of just communicating that if an emergency were to pop up or there is something in your schedule that you can't change, like I'll give an example. I'm a student. I had a time where I was going to come to a board meeting and I had to ask last minute. I wasn't informed me that I wasn't able to come because my exam schedule changed and I have to have an exam at the same time the board meeting was happening. And that was something that was outside of my control. And I wouldn't necessarily categorize it as like a life-threatening emergency, but it was an emergency in my point of view and my stance as a student. And so just so that the individual has an understanding of what's your role in your life and how can you fit in this into that and how does that work, and knowing that at times you'll receive emails throughout the day of like, oh, we'll work with schedules. What does that look like? what does your schedule on Friday or Thursday look like at lunch, and how can you move around that? Like, I know there have been times where we would meet at noon on Thursdays and I had class that would end at noon and sometimes over. And so you advocated and said, let's start at 12:15 so that I can have some time to get to somewhere where I can fully be engaged in that conversation. I think that's what I mean by flexibility, knowing that communication is happening and everyone's talking, and that's what schedule will look like, because we know that not everything will go to plan, but at least that individual can know that there is that little wiggle room so that they can work with me and I can work with them.
You know, one of the things that maybe needs to happen is, when I came on the board, it was a very, wasn't a very nice experience for me, 4 years. They really didn't want me on the board. I was the odd person out. And I absolutely had no idea, you know, I had no idea because people just wouldn't share. And, the superintendent said, well, you know, go talk to the business manager, you can go talk to and find out. And that's then, we're in a different place now, but every time someone new has come on the board, I think there needs to be like an orientation, a packet that says something like, you know, that explains the board meetings, explains the leadership meeting, that helps. And I think having 3 new people on the board this year is ask them, you know, what would you have liked to have known ahead of time? And that's something I think that's been missing. And, you know, people just are real quiet the first year because they really don't know. And then people that have been on for a while, we assume that they know, which they don't know. And so maybe going forward is something, I don't know, it's something that I have been continually thinking about, that it would really help me forward with it.
When I was in your shoes over at the city, running the council, new people came on the council and said, what do we do? And I said, okay. They had conflicts. Said, how do I deal with this? And they said, use the matrix of family, job, job and board, or family, job, council. I said, family comes first. Your job comes second. The board will come third. I didn't put a period at the end of that. It wasn't a hard stop. It was a semicolon or a comma. I said, however, there will come times where you are going to have to tell your family, I have to be at this meeting. This has to be done. So within reason, you are working and doing that balancing act, juggling act, whatever you want to call it, between those 3 things. If you wanted to add something else, the fourth would be your community. But, and I don't know how you would put that into the form of a question, but how do you deal with making that balance work for you? First of all, for you. Secondly, for the board. Third, for the superintendent and staff. You have to make sure that while those things are important, there are times where they are going to move in different directions. They are going to be back and forth. For example, a board member can't miss voting on the budget, to authorize the budget in the final meeting of the previous fiscal year. You have to be there. You have to cast your vote. And if that same night, your spouse or somebody has a very important dinner they have to be at, and you need to be there. How do you deal with those 2 things? That's going to be a question you're going to have to answer, but it's also going to be a question that will impact your working relationship with the rest of the board. And especially in contested areas where there might be a 2-2 vote, you are the tiebreaker. I've had more than one occasion where we had counselors that missed meetings when they were the tie-breaking vote. Because they didn't want to be in that particular. And that's a responsibility. That's one of the. That's part of the bad news. That you're going to have to make difficult decisions and you're gonna have to face up to them in the public arena. How do you balance that? And I'm not sure I see that in here, but I think the answer is given in the course of giving all of these answers. We just have to be smart enough to figure that out. But a board member who misses a board meeting because they have a golf game scheduled with somebody, that's nonsense. Because nobody held a gun to your head to make you run for it.
So I think what I'm hearing from this, is a couple of really good things. One, the idea of attaching the goals, the legislative advocacy sheet, the previous year's calendar, so people could see this is what this would have looked like. And a general statement of the role of the job they're actually applying for, which is a great idea. Breeze, I'm hearing from you at the end, we need to add a few of the actual legal qualifications. Thank you, for what it also needs to take, to be able to run for the board, or you're running for an appointment, you're applying for an appointment. And then I think plenty of suggestions of how to rework this, I think, to get us to a place where this is never gonna be perfect, right? This is, like Pete said, we're not hopefully gonna be doing 4 appointments over the next, whatever, it happens once in a while. This is the first time this board has worked on this. I think this has been a really great discussion. So what I'm sensing, what I'm feeling is, I think we and leadership can rework this with all of the input. Send it out to the board, and unless someone on the board is just really like, no, still really don't like this, then we'll keep workshopping it until we feel like everybody is in a place where we post it. I don't know if it's ambitious enough. I do think we could. I don't think I want to say by Thursday because, yeah, all of this, so, and all of us in life, but I'm hesitant to put, I think I would feel comfortable saying by Monday. I'm looking and looking, if we were to make those shifts, if I felt like individually board members were okay with moving forward, that date sounds good to Bethany. Does that sound reasonable? We give us time to, well, and it would be, what we haven't talked about is the length, but I think that we post it on Monday. And then at the next board meeting, we are able to review how many applicants we've had and what's the further length of time before we close the application. Does that sound?
Well, I want staff to be totally on board with those deadlines, because they're the ones that are gonna be doing that. If they have an ounce of hesitation over that, I wanna be as flexible as possible. I don't want it done by Monday if Monday puts an undue strain on people.
Well, I mean.
And I'm not gonna put a person on the spot here and say, how does that sound?
Today's Tuesday,
Yeah,
so
I'm aware of that. I'm aware of that.
I'm the one doing the typing, so I'm thinking Monday is a week. And again, it would be just waiting to see. First, we have to see where people are by Thursday or Friday with revisions. And if Friday, we're getting the sense that, okay, things are good. If they're not, we don't have to post.
Can
Yeah,
I reframe this just a little?
yes,
bit?
please.
In terms of thinking through a deadline, Monday would work if the final questions were provided at least 48 working hours in advance. So if you could give us a couple days' notice, that puts some pressure on the board to have the conversations, to agree to the whatever revisions that you want to make to the application. It doesn't take 2 days to actually create the webpage, publish it. What happens in that 2-day period is what delays just getting it done, because in the course of running a school district, there's a lot of emergent issues that pull us away from things that we're working on. So that's why I'm asking for at least a couple of days to be able to get the website up and running. If we can commit to that, which means we would get those questions by Thursday, we can have them up Monday for sure. If it takes the board longer, we'll just push that deadline back a little.
What if we set the deadline no later by next Friday? And if we're ready before then, we can post,
Deadline for the board for,
to post the questions no later than next Friday. So
oh,
instead
a
of
week
Monday.
from this, right?
Yeah,
Well, that
yes.
yes. Again, we still need a couple of days
So
to do,
Wednesday.
yes,
So the board deadline is Wednesday.
correct,
Tuesday would be nice.
correct.
Perfect.
So if we want it posted by Friday, we have to get it in by Wednesday.
Got it. Yes.
Tuesday or one.
That work? Well, does that work? Yeah, okay. Okay.
Well, I think Enrique's also involved in this a little bit.
No.
I'm just spitballing it.
So, I mean, I'll work as quickly as possible to get something revised and then I'll have a conversation with each of you. And you guys are really, really good about taking those calls and then, okay. Do we need to make a motion to move forward with that? I don't.
I think we can do that on consensus.
All right, okay. I think there being no further business, this meeting is adjourned at 7:40. Thank you, everybody.